Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Ancient Guardians just had its official release in the OCG, and I couldn't be more excited. Every theme has a really cool angle that I can't wait to explore, and it's one of my favorite things about deck build packs. My exuberance is dampened quite a bit by the recent changes to the rarity structure in the TCG, but I think everyone here has heard me rant about that a few too many times. Now, in the previous deck build pack, Genesis Impactors, you'll remember that one of the themes was Drytron, a theme that turned ritual summoning on its head with its unique and powerful ritual spell, before being stripped for parts and repurposed for Vanity's Ruler and Herald of Ultimateness control setups. But it seems that Drytron's aesthetic was too tantalizing for the designers to move on from, so now it's time to introduce you to Bears in Space! Ursarctics were the first theme of this set to be revealed, and it was an excellent choice, because it immediately got the player base buzzing with excitement. The image of a level 1 Synchro monster got people speculating, bringing to mind the dread power of Ultimaya Zolkin, another oddity of Synchro design. And when the way to summon them was made clear, the 5D's only Dark Synchro summoning method seized our imaginations as well. But now, all the mysteries of these Ursine spacefarers have been laid bare, so now it's time to figure out if there's any substance to all this style. We'll go over the stats of our ships while hibernating, chart our course of action as we wake up, then conscript any similar ships that make our team stronger than the average fleet. It's time to dip our toes into Ursarctics. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 5,000 subs and you can help make it happen. Once we reach that lofty goal, I'll be making Heroes Explained, covering everything from Contrast Hero Chaos to Extra Hero Wonder Driver, and every related monster, spell, and trap in between. We've also got a Discord where we're like 90% sure that Magic Key Clavis is the child of Avram and Ib from the World Legacy storyline, and a Twitter where you can stay up to date on channel news and my bad takes. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So what's the deal with Ursarctics? Well, they're a series of water attribute monsters with some interesting categories. As far as our main deck monsters are concerned, they can all be special summoned from the hand at quick effect speed during any main phase by tributing a level 7 or higher monster in your hand, which is nice because that encompasses all of our themed main deck monsters. However, you are locked out of special summoning monsters without levels for the rest of the turn, so that means no Xyz and no Links. They also have an effect that triggers when special summoned in any way, so you get a little extra value out of them. Also, the number 7 features rather prominently among a lot of these cards, because like how Drytron referenced the Draco constellation, Ursarctic references the Big Dipper, an asterism made up of 7 stars that's part of the, wait for it, Ursa Major constellation. Very clever of you developers. Let's start with our minor bears. They're all level 7 and have 700 attack. First is Ursarctic McBillis. They have 1400 defense, and when special summoned, you can special summon an Ursarctic monster from your hand. Thankfully, since none of the Ursarctics need to be summoned by their own effect to trigger their on-summon effect, this means you can get 2 bears for the price of 1 without losing any value. We call that the Brother Bear combo. Next is Ursarctic McPola. They have 2000 defense, and when special summoned, you get to add an Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand. This means that you're summoning them basically for free, replacing the monster you tributed for their effect. This also means that you're sculpting your hand a bit, accessing a necessary Ursarctic to shape your play sequences. They're also skating on a giant space board that looks like a bear paw, and that's just pawsome. The last minor bear is Mictanus. They have 1700 defense, so they're double dipping on that 7s reference, and when special summoned, you can add an Ursarctic monster from your grave to your hand. So what McBillis is for getting your plays started, Mictanus is for keeping your resources topped off so you can keep summoning. But despite how useful it is, I do dislike it the most. Not for its effect or anything, that's great, but every time I think of it, I want to say Biff Tannen, you know, the Trump analogy from Back to the Future, and I'm immediately filled with rage. Okay, time for our major bears. They're all level 8 tuners, have 700 defense, and their on-summon effects are a bit harder to pull off, requiring you to have another Ursarctic monster on board to activate. The first one is Ursarctic Megabilis. They have 2800 attack, and on special summon, you can target any card in your opponent's grave and banish it. So not only is it a DD Crow, it's got a huge attack stat, making this Megabilis a Mega Monarch. Give or take a few defense points. Next is Ursarctic Megapola. They have 2500 attack, and on special summon, you can target and destroy a spell or trap your opponent controls. Which is, you know, nice? I guess? Okay, this is an example of how your major bear effects aren't too important to resolve, but it's nice that they're around. It feels kinda weird that a level 8's effect is basically just Mystical Space Typhoon, but cards like Megapolo really hammer in that point. The last major bear is Ursarctic Megatanus. They have 2400 attack, and if special summoned, you can flip one monster your opponent controls into face down defense position. Now, this is actually a really strong card. Paired with McBillis going second, you can actually Book of Moon your opponent when they go first, letting you stop the dreaded normal summon Zodiac or Virtual World when you couldn't otherwise do so. But it is weird that it has an effect that doesn't interact with Link monsters. Like, it has a bow, you'd think it'd be able to do something with all those arrows. That about does it for the main deck bears. Now let's talk about the extra deck. We have level 7 non-tuners and level 8 tuners, and since we aren't getting a level 15 Synchro anytime soon, what are we gonna do with them? Well, make a level 1 Synchro, of course. Meet Ursarctic Polari. They're a beast monster with 700 attack and 1000 defense, and they cannot be Synchro summoned. Instead, you have to send a tuner and a non-tuner from your field to the grave, whose difference in level equals 1. Now, this isn't really true Dark Synchro summoning, as you can use a tuner that's smaller than your non-tuner, but you're generally going to make it with your big bears. If they're special summoned, you can activate an Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from your deck, and we'll get to that card in a bit. They can also tribute a level 7 or higher monster you control to add to hand or special summon an Ursarctic monster from your grave. These effects are integral for your follow-up plays, so you can go into your real boss monsters. It's really useful for helping you build a bear. So what is Ursarctic Big Dipper? Well, it's a field spell that, once per turn, lets you banish a level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster from your grave to activate an Ursarctic monster's effect, instead of having to tribute for them. This is nifty because once you've made Polari, you can banish the level 7 you used to summon back the level 8 tuner. Also, anytime any number of monsters are special summoned, you place a counter on Big Dipper, and once per turn, if any number of monsters are special summoned, and Big Dipper has 7 or more counters on it, and you control an Ursarctic Synchro monster, you can remove all counters to target and take control of a monster your opponent controls permanently. And once you activate it off of Polari, you'll be loading at least 2 counters onto it as you follow through on the play sequence to get into your bigger Synchro. It is much more telegraphed than Nibiru and doesn't wipe out an opponent's entire monster lineup, but it can let you take their most important monster at the drop of a hat. You can even force the trigger with your own quick effect summons, and Permanent Change of Heart is a pretty threatening effect to hang over your opponent's head. Heck, the theme's own limitations around Xyz and Link monsters don't completely matter anymore, cause now you can just dip into your opponent's extra deck. Now it's time for the rest of our Synchros. They're both level 7 Beast Warriors with 700 defense, and like Polari, can't actually be Synchro summoned. Instead, you have to send a level 8 or higher tuner and a non-tuner monster you control to the grave, whose level difference equals 7. Now this is true Dark Synchro summoning. With water monsters. Just ignore that part. Frozen Fitzgerald exists, it's fine. The first one is Ursarctic Septentrion. They have 3000 attack, and while they're on the field, the effects of all monsters on the field special summoned from the extra deck without a level are negated. Hey, if you don't get to use Xyz and Link monsters, neither do they. Also, once per turn, if your opponent special summons any number of monsters, Septentrion can add any Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand, so it's kind of like a true Draco, gaining you advantage as your opponent tries to break free of your field. And while the Floodgate effect is kind of situational, Links are as pervasive as they've ever been, and as long as Zodiacs are a thing, it's a great way to insulate you from them and Zeus. Also, not for nothing, but it's a giant bear mecha with a sword shaped like the Big Dipper. I don't know how not to be excited by that. Our second Synchro is Ursarctic Grand Chariot. They have 2700 attack, and if special summoned, you can target up to 2 other cards on the field and destroy them. Just, blow them up, no charge. Also, once per turn, if a card or effect targets any number of Ursarctic cards you control, you can tribute a monster from your hand or field to negate the activation. So where Septentrion was your defensive boss, Grand Chariot is your offensive one, clearing out threats to make room for your absolutely enormous boofers. And it even keeps you safe from things that Septentrion can't interact with, like an in-hand Eldritch effect. It's pretty grand. Okay, now it's time for the support cards that bring it all together. Ursarctic Departure is a normal spell that has you discarding a card to add any 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand. Also, if you would tribute a monster to activate an Ursarctic's monster effect, except the turn Departure was sent to the grave, you can banish the spell instead. So it's basically Machina redeployment with more upside, and as long as you have another eligible monster to activate their summon effects, or a Departure and grave ready to go, you can search McBillis and any major bear for a play sequence that gets your field spell and any of your big Synchros. It really gets your deck ready to take off. Next is Ursarctic Slider, a quick play spell that has you targeting one of your Ursarctics in your grave or banished zone and special summoning them, but it can't attack and is destroyed during the end phase. Also, after activation, it applies the same restriction as your Ursarctic special summons, stopping you from special summoning anything that doesn't have a level for the rest of the turn. But hey, you were probably under that effect anyway, and for what you get, it's well worth it. A free summon of any of your Ursarctics means you get more material to set up for your big synchros, and it doesn't negate their effects, making it one of the best ways to summon your minor bears for some pluses, and with the right setup, even get your major bears effects, making this a revival spell and a Book of Moon, or an MST, or a DD Crow, or anything else they add in the future. Seriously, take advantage of this card while you can, because once your opponent catches on, they aren't going to let it slide for much longer. Our last card is Ursarctic Quint Charge, a continuous trap that has some useful effects and one very silly one. See, while this card is active and any of your Ursarctics are destroyed in battle by an opponent's attacking monster, you can make them shuffle cards from their hand, field, and grave into their deck until the total number of cards in all those zones combined is 7. But that's not why we're really using it. The main attraction is that you can pay 700 life points to activate either one of two effects. You can add an Ursarctic monster from your grave to your hand, or tribute 2 Ursarctic monsters, and if you do, special summon 1 Ursarctic monster from your extra deck whose level equals the difference in levels between those monsters, ignoring summoning conditions. So you can either get back some tribute fodder, starters, or reset your synchros with the first effect, or effectively excel synchro during your opponent's turn. So let's imagine we're going first, and we end on just Polari, a level 8 tuner, and Quint Charge. Then, during our opponent's turn, we can use the Quint Charge to quick synchro into a Grand Chariot for the double pop, or spring Septentrion on your opponent once they've committed to a Link or an Xyz play. It's really good at leading the charge, especially when your opponent least expects it. Okay, so that's all of our monsters, but what do we do with them? Well, despite all of our quick effects and big monsters, we're neither fast nor good on the beatdown. We just spend a little too many resources on setting up our plays, and unlike some other, more resource-conscious decks, our monsters don't have an effect that triggers when tributed to recoup some of those costs. So, with all that being said, it's control time. We'll bog down our opponent with Septentrion as well as quick effects from McBillis and Megatannis until we've reached a critical mass of big beast warriors to close things out. But what can we add to help them out? Well, this might be the deck that actually makes the best use of Trial and Tribulation. Now, this card would be an absolute blowout if you could get more than one of these effects in a turn, but the 2 effect is still pretty good at restocking your hand, and may even be better than Salvage in this regard. Sure, that card can be used all by itself, but it can only get our minor bears plus Polari, whereas Trial has the option to get back any monster or pick apart an entire field. And speaking of destroying cards, King Beast Barbaros is pretty good at it. No, not Beast King Barbaros, they're completely different. With King Beast, you can special summon them by tributing any of your on-field major bears, attack a bunch of monsters with a 3000 attack body, then banish them to blow up 2 more cards. I guess you could also get the tributes together to get the field wipe effect of original Beast King Barbaros, and if you run both, then you can just banish Beast King from your grave so you can keep King Beast on field. Alpha, the Master of Beasts, also makes for a great inclusion. They hit like a truck, and if you need more bouncing power, your Ursarctics are more than prepared to help. They're especially helpful for setting up your minor bears so you can continue to get the most out of them, especially if they were about to explode from something like Slider's end phase effect. As for a silly tech pick, well, they may not seem like likely allies, but Ursarctics are beasts and beast warriors, so Tri-Brigade can help. It does take some proper sequencing to be sure, but the summoning effects of the Ursarctics only apply for the rest of the turn after activation, so starting your plays with a Fractal can get you into a Flaget, which can summon your Ursarctics without having to tribute a monster, or Shrag to set up a non-targeting banish if you summon your Ursarctics during your opponent's turn. You can even run Tri-Brigade Revolt to get back any of your banished Ursarctics. Just, make sure you don't plan to set up Septentrion before you do any of that, because that is a non-bow. And that's all I've got to say on Ursarctics. Overall, I'm not too impressed with them if I'm being honest. They aren't very resource effective, and it feels like you're going through a lot of hoops to get a floodgate that can be played around with the right sequencing, and the on-summon effects just don't seem to tip the scales in your favor all that much. Megapolis' spell and trap removal is nice, but if what you really need is monster disruption and you don't have Megatannis, then you're out of luck. But the infrastructure is there, and I feel like given the right support in a core set, this could be the kind of disruption strategy that forces people to rethink how they play the game. We just need to be patient and bear with them. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you agree that Ursarctic aren't as cool as their designs, or are they a secret space ace waiting for the right pilot? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. It really does a lot to help me out. And if you want to see a video about another group of intrepid mecha monsters that break the rules of their signature summoning mechanic, check out this video where I talk all about the infamous Drytron. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.